right, students, this is the lecture for Monday. I'm recording it Friday afternoons because I want to have a good weekend, so I want to get it done now. I know some of you had trouble hearing me on the YouTube video we did the other day, or you looked at Friday, and so I have bought a microphone. I've tried it, and I think I had it too close to my mouth, so I'm going to keep it a little bit further away here, and I'm going to try to speak slowly, which is not easy for me. All right, so title your paper this way. This will be page 2 in your notebook, and don't worry about the page numbers too much. Once I get to know you all, I'll pick some really sharp student who's organized, and they will keep track of what number we are on. And just so you know, I don't ever play gotcha with notebooks. I give you usually 2 or 3 days warning of when I'm going to take them up. So the big thing is just take notes all along, and frequently we find out that there's a mistake. Something we labeled number 4 was number 3, we'll fix it. If when you turn your notebook in, everything is there, every single assignment, and I can tell that you are taking detailed notes, you're showing to me that you really want to pass the class and do well, you're going to get 100% on the notebook. And I want it that way. And so this is one of the few grades you can get for effort, okay? All right, so moving on. You got the title here. This is part of our foundations unit. I don't think I called it that the first day, but I should have. This is everything before we officially begin. Remember, you do get points for this in your essays, which are 60% of the exam. So I'm not covering something with you that is not important. It just won't be tested directly. So we're going to talk about probably the second most important country in AP World History. China is clearly by far number 1. India is right there with it. And so this is a little bit of history of ancient India. All right, so remember to listen and take notes. I have graded AP World Exams essays, I think for 12 years, 11 years. I'm not even sure. But I can tell you that you want to prejudice the reader in your favor. So prejudice is, anyway, I'll leave that alone. You want them to like you and think that you're intelligent. So as much vocabulary as you can use, I'm trying very hard to talk slow. As much vocabulary as you can use will be helpful. This is India here today, the continent of India. And, well, I'm sorry. Well, that's a big mistake to make. I should just talk fast. I won't make so many mistakes. This is on the continent of Asia. This is the modern-day country of India. We're going to talk about it before it was a country. Okay, so go ahead and write this title in your notes, Foundations of Indian Civilization. And you can go ahead and, if I had to sum up India with one word, it would be busy. I know that lots of stuff going on, lots of different types of people there, lots of different races, if you want to use that word, lots of different cultures, lots of different languages, and their religion has many, many gods. I know that is incorrect before someone wants to correct me. They are manifestations of the same God, but there's numerous, and the Indians are largely behind our knowledge of mathematics, even though the numbers we use are called Arabic numerals. They were discovered by what we would call Indians. I'm getting a little ahead of the game here, but the Indians were great mathematicians, and the Arabs got their numbering system and their way they dealt with numbers from the Indians, and the Europeans got their numbers from the Arabs. So the Europeans got numbers from Arabs that were actually the way the Indians had done them. So they called them, Arabic numerals. And anyway, the United States was started by Europeans, the country, not the continent. And so that's where that comes from. All right, so just think of the word busy. Okay, so go ahead and write this down. It's many deities. I'm sure I have Indian students in class. Please do not be offended by anything I say. I've said this repeatedly. I'm doing the best I can based on my limited knowledge of this. I will already tell one story. I only taught AP Geography 1 year. I really liked it, but I already taught AP World, and then I added AP Geography, and then I wanted to add AP European History, and they thought that was too much for one teacher to teach 3 AP classes. Look at me now. I'm still teaching 3 AP classes, but I had to give one of those up. And to this day, I wish I'd given AP World History up, no offense to you, and kept Human Geography because I'm the swim coach, to be honest with you, and it would be nice if I could recruit freshmen. That's not the only reason. But I found AP Geography much easier to teach than AP World History. Anyway, I am digressing, but the point I'm trying to get to is my first year teaching AP Geography, I taught AP World as well, and we had a field trip to the Hindu temple in Castleberry. Talk about meeting the nicest people in the world. This man over there organized it, a member of that, I'm going to say congregation because of my Christian background, a member of the people that attend there. I don't know what the word is for Hindus, and it was a wonderful experience. We got to tour the temple. The kids came out and did a ethnic Indian dance, and we ate ethnic Indian food. It was a wonderful trip. Anyway, moving on. It's okay. It's elaborate hierarchy of social groups. It's history of political division and class divisions. There's been a lot of fighting in India, and very interesting. It's many languages and ethnic groups. Okay, moving on to the next slide. These winds here are very important. These winds, I have plenty of sailing stories to tell you. I'm a kayaker, if you watched my biography video, and we have like 7 kayaks, I'm not sure. With my best friend together, we have about 19 in between us. He has a much bigger family, and one of his kayaks and one of mine can be equipped with a sail. And I can tell you, if you're in a kayak with a sail up, when the wind blows, it is scary as heck because you're worried about being blown over. Sailing may look like fun, but you don't get, if you get wind, you can't sail without wind. And if you get wind, you get waves, which will swamp you. And I've only rolled my kayak once with the sail on top, and it could have been a bad day, but my best friend was there with his sail kayak, and he helped rescue me. Anyway, enough about that. There's a saying about sailing that it is 90% boredom, 10% sheer terror. And someday I will tell you about the 3 different times I've been rescued by the Coast Guard. But today is not that day. Anyway, so going out on the ocean back in the day, before Jesus was born, was very risky and very dangerous. What's interesting, and I hope you can see my cursor moving here, about the winds blowing across here is this is Africa over here to the left and India to the right, is these are known as the monsoons. If they come at a certain time of year, and so they are, you want to write this down, predictable, which means the sailors can depend on them. All right, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. That is the monsoon winds. There's there's how you spell it down at the bottom. There are a lot of jokes made. Someone will call me and say, are we having swim practice today? And that's a stupid question to ask me all the time. Unless there's lightning, we're going to have swim practice. And they'll say it's storm, even though there's no lightning, coach, it's storming. And I will tell them, we will swim in the middle of a monsoon as long as there's no lightning. You're going to get wet anyway. But if it storms really bad and the rain and wind is really bad, people will say, hey, we're in a monsoon. By the way, again, on the right here, I want you to write this down. India is known as, it's in Asia, but India is called the subcontinent. There it is right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and take some notes. It's bordered on the north by the Himalayan mountains. I would ask you if I was there in person. I'm having trouble with this talking slow. I would ask you, I would say that in the mountains of the United States, supposedly Bigfoot exists. In Florida, they didn't have a monster, so they made one up called, now I'm going to have a senior moment, forget about it. Oh, shoot, there's a legendary monster in Florida that everybody knows doesn't exist. They just wanted some legend to get tourists to come down here. The skunk ape, that's it, the skunk ape. No such thing. It's a Floridian joke on those Yankee tourists. Anyway, here's my question for you. What is the legendary monster of the Himalayas? And don't bother to email me. It is the Yeti or the abominable snowman. Okay. All right, so I'm going to pick up the pace here a little bit, but I will try to continue to talk slowly. The reason it's called India today is there's a river there called the Indus River. See the spelling there. And there was a civilization. We need to go through this quickly. It's not important now for this course. It's important in history. There was a civilization there many, many, many centuries ago near this river, and it collapsed. And we don't know much about it because the writing was not deciphered. Okay, so we're moving on. Okay, so now the next topic is way back before Jesus. BCE means before current era. The European calendar was always based on Jesus, the time of Jesus. So it used to be if you were born, if something happened before Jesus' time, the Europeans would call that BC or before Christ. And then if you happened after Jesus' time, they would say AD, after death, Anno Domini. And so somebody came along and changed that. We will not speculate on their motives, but they changed in AP World History the terms to BCE and CE. So BCE is before current era, and CE means current era, but it's still roughly separated by the time of Jesus. But we'll move on. Today's not Christianity. Today, talk about Christianity. We're talking about these other religions. Anyway, during this time in ancient Indian history, it was called the Vedic Age, and there's some religious text called the Vedas, or the Vedas, and it is the foundation of the Indian religion. Now, I want to tell you here, there's a few chapters in AP World History I'm nervous about teaching, because I don't want to say anything wrong. I do not want to offend anybody. If you watch, I know I have a lot of students who just transferred in from Mr. Enchel's class, but I come from a very strong Christian background. I went to a Christian university, and my mother's an ordained Pentecostal minister, and my grandfather was a Pentecostal minister. So I have that in my genes and in my blood and in my spiritual DNA. So, but I want to teach this right, but I don't want to offend anybody that has this religion or is from this part of the world, but I want to get it as accurate as possible. So I'm telling you what I think the historians believe. Okay? So here is the theory. And if you look in your book, you can go back. There's a chapter on India way back. We're skipping that, and I'm covering all that now. But there were people who lived in the subcontinent. Historians believe they were dark-skinned. And then somewhere during this time, some people came in from the north. And that is this so-called Indo-European migration. They were nomadic warriors. You should know what nomadic means. They wandered around, and they came in. Historians believe they were lighter-skinned. They came in, invaded through the mountains or through a pass in the mountains, and came into India from the north and conquered a lot. They had more power in northern India than southern India. And here's these two terms. You can write them down. You don't need so much to memorize all this stuff right now, but just need to know this. Have it in your. Just think of this as a story. I'm telling you. Okay, so they were light-skinned, the area, and then there were the dark-skinned, the Dasa. And I'm probably not pronouncing them right. That is okay, because this is a written exam. And so the Arya came in now. Hitler later on is going to talk about these people, or someone related to them, and call them the Aryans, the same people. Whether or not, don't spend too much time on this. I'm not an expert on this, and you don't need to be either. Just know there were two groups of people in India now, two different cultural traditions. They say that today there's a lot of Indian languages spoken in India, and you may not know, but languages change. They evolve. For instance, the correct way to spell through is Through. That's in American English. Eventually, because so many people go to drive-thrus at fast food joints, obviously I have spent a lot of time going through them. They spell that Thru, which is how many Americans are starting to spell it. So probably 20 or 30 years in the future, the standard American English spelling will be Thru. Right now, I would think your English teacher, would mark it wrong. A couple more examples. We speak English. I did my master's degree thesis, 140 pages long. You go up to UCF sometime, you can check it out. It's on, I think, the 6th floor, I'm not sure. Several of my students have gone out and checked it out just to make me feel good, so it shows that somebody has checked it out. One of them actually read it. Talk about someone with no life. Just kidding, I hope. But anyway, I learned the hard way that when you're studying English, that the English speak, they spell the word honor Honour. We spell it Honor. And so there's ways that they spell things in England that we spell differently. Anyway, you need to know that languages change. I showed you that video. I hope you could hear the singing and watch the subtext about the Old English and how different that was. You could probably understand every fourth word. Anyway, here's what I'm trying to say. The languages in northern India, there are more of them descended today from the Aryan language, and there are more of the languages in southern India descended from the original Indians. And they say, I don't know if this is true, that there tend to be more darker-skinned Indians in southern India than the north. I've heard that, I've read that, I do not know. There's Monsoons we talked about. Okay, growth of the Vedic religion. Now, there's going to be some vocabulary here, and I'm going to tell you for some Anglo-Southerner, American Southerner like me, the differences between Hinduism and Buddhism. A little complicated for me, and some of the vocabulary may not be 100% right. Trust me when I say I've had hundreds of AP World kids pass this exam. We're going to get through this. Last year, my highest pass rate ever. All right. So there's this term varna, which literally means color, and the skin color became something like class, and it created a social order. Now, this is way more complicated than we're going to learn. We're going to learn the basics. There became 4 classes. You got to write this down. Oh, there's a typo there. The Brahmin, priests and scholars, they could perform sacrifices and ceremonies correctly. So in India during the time, there were 4 classes, and the highest class, or the more accurate term is caste, is the Brahmin. We use this word in American slang to refer to upper class. I haven't heard anybody use it in a long time, but it is an old American English term referring to they'll say they're a real Brahmin class. That means upper class. Okay, you can go ahead and write this down. You don't need, other than Brahmin and one more, you don't really need to know the Indian names. Okay, so here are the 4, I started to say tribes, classes. They're apparently over time there's going to be many more than this. These are the basics. And then beneath them there's another class called the untouchables. Okay, so there's 4, really 5. I don't know why they're not considered one of the 4, but anyway, they're there. And you see there what everyone's occupation is. Now, let me just tell you this. Here's the theory. Again, I do not want to be offensive, but this is the way I understand it. I know Mr. Anchel, him and I have talked about this. He teaches it kind of differently. So we talked about it, and I kind of changed the way I teach it. So here's the way I understand it. And if you don't understand all of this, it's not that big a deal. Okay? First off, if you're a Hindu or a Buddhist, you're pretty sure of what you believe. And, so here's the way I understand it. There was this Vedic religion in India. Existed for centuries. Hundreds of years, maybe over 1,000 years, that Vedic age. And then came the Aryan invasions. And during the Aryan invasions, again, over centuries, the original Vedic religion changed somewhat. Okay, it was changed now. A lot of people believe it was changed by the Aryans, but whatever. So the religion changes. We're going to move on here. And it's kind of, you see there's a hierarchy. The triangle is there on purpose. Okay? And so there is, the higher up you are, the higher class you are. All right, I'm going to let you write here what happened was, over time, they originally, I'm going to back up here, the second class there, the warriors, was the first class. And the Brahmin were the second class. But over the centuries, those classes changed place. This is probably way too much detail for you. But anyway, this is the setup you need to know. Again, we're not going to memorize anything just yet. What you're going to hear from me is I'm going to throw out some big picture ideas you need to pick up. The biggest thing you need to pick up is there's basically 2 types of people in India. One that were there before, and then the invaders that came in. And there's this kind of modification to this religion. And basically, again, I'm very uncomfortable teaching this, but the belief becomes that you are in a class, and you are supposed to marry within that class, and you're going to live your whole life in that class. And then when you die, if you have done everything that you were supposed to do and done it right, you are going to reincarnate and come back a higher class. And basically, you're going up this stairstep, this stairway, upwards through this reincarnation. Okay. For instance, now again, there's this story about this Indian leader who's going into battle. Okay? And he's going in there, and he's on his chariot, and he's about to go kill a whole bunch of people. And he doesn't really want to do that, because he thinks he shouldn't kill people. But his chariot driver, who is one of is an enlightened man who has come back to counsel him, tells him, no, you need to go in to this battle, and you need to do what you're supposed to do, which is kill the people on the other side. And if you do that, you will be fulfilling your position in this life, so that in the next life you will have good karma, and you will move up a step, whatever the next step is. And in fighting bravely and fighting these other people who will also be fighting bravely, even if you kill them, you are allowing them to move up to the next step. So this is part of your duty. All right. You can write this down about Jainism. All right, so you can write down the first 3 things about Jainism. This is an old lecture. I have not updated it. If this was a major topic on the AP World Exam, I would have redone it. This lecture is probably 7 or 8 years old. I'm just going to give you the basics, and you already have them. So, again, some of you may know a lot about this topic, but you have the basics. India is the subcontinent. There's the monsoon winds. There was an invasion, and there was this religion that had classes. Now, let me tell you what those classes are in a historian's eyes. That is a social hierarchy. You caught what I said about this group does these jobs and associates with their class, and then in the next life they're going to move up. That is a social hierarchy. I want you to write that in your notes. This is a social hierarchy system with rules. Okay? If this concept is unfamiliar to you, it is because you're Americans, and for the most part in this country, you can marry whoever you want. You can start, and your parents can have one job. And my mother was a teacher. My father was a welder. My father probably had a 2nd or 3rd grade education. My mother has a master's degree. Very different. I am a teacher like my mother. You are free to become anything you want to be in this country. You can marry anyone as long as they want to marry you in this country. And so you're just not used to this social hierarchy, but that's part of what we learn from other cultures. This is not the only country that is going to have that. All right, so let's say that there are many, many subclasses, because there are. They're not just those ones I gave you. And so if you are going to go all the way up the ladder, now once you go through all those steps and all those lives, you are going to die and become one with, remember when I tried to talk about the mandate of heaven, this is rather hard for me to understand. I'll be honest with you, I don't understand it. But you're going to become one with this force in the universe. That is your ultimate goal. Okay? But it's going to take you hundreds of years to get there. All right, so keep that in mind. Then along comes during this time a guy named Siddhartha Gautama. And the story goes, now he is somewhat controversial in history. Some people do not believe he existed. For the record, some people do not believe there was an actual Jesus. You believe whatever you want. I'm not here to tell you what to believe or not to believe. But there was this man, the story goes, Siddhartha Gautama, and he was meditating. And he wanted on how he could become enlightened. And the story was he became enlightened. And what he did was, he said, you don't have to go through all these steps to get to the top. One year there was a DBQ. I know some of you do not know what a DBQ is yet. There was a DBQ, and you had to interpret all the documents to answer the question. And there was a Hindu temple. I should have had a picture here for you. And it's got these like roofs on it. I don't explain it, but their levels are going up like this. It makes me think of the Led Zeppelin song, Stairway to Heaven. And that's literally what it represented. You're going through these stages. Well, here's what Siddhartha Gautama came up with. He's like, listen, if you live your life right now, it is possible for you to go to the top without going through all these stages. Now, those of you who are Buddhist or Hindu, I'm sure you believe I'm butchering this. But all my AP World kids need to do is have an understanding of this. Now, here's a word you may not have used before. It's revolutionary. This idea that you could meditate and go all the way through the end of this cycle, because that's what it is. It's a cycle of birth and rebirth. Birth, death, and rebirth. You could jump to the end of the cycle, take a shortcut, use a calculator on the calculus exam. I don't even know if that's a relevant analogy or not. This is revolutionary, literally revolutionary. It's a game changer. It's a game changer. And so he is going to be called Buddha, the Enlightened One, and the religion is going to start based on his beliefs called Buddhism. Now, according to the historians, those lower classes back in the day were mostly dark-skinned, and the upper classes were light-skinned. Keep in mind who supposedly came in, from the north. And so, who is going to be most interested in this idea that can meditate and get their minds right, and they could go to the end of the process? It is going to be the lower classes who are mostly darker skinned. Okay? All right. And so here's what he basically comes up with. I really wish I was doing this lecture in person. So here's what Buddha sums up. Now I'm going to give you the Southern American interpretation. He basically says, life is suffering, and suffering is caused by desire. And desire can be curbed by following the Eightfold Path. All right, these are just facts. I don't know that you need to write much of this stuff down. There's the ultimate goal there is nirvana, snuffing out the flame, and you're becoming one out here. Now this is way back when. Both these religions, Buddhism and Hinduism, are going to change through the centuries. Now, here's what Buddha apparently taught. Life is suffering, and suffering is caused by desire. So the key is to, I'm just going to say it the way I normally say it when there's kids in the room. Look, you're miserable because you want stuff. Now here's the American solution. The American solution is, I'm sure some of you are already ahead of me on this, if you want something, just go get it. That is not his solution. The solution is not to get what you want because the lack of having it is making you miserable. His solution is basically teach yourself not to want it. There you go. If I could just teach myself not to want one of those Little Caesars $5 pepperoni pizzas, I wouldn't have a weight problem. I have tried that. It has not worked. I haven't really seriously tried it. But that is kind of summing this up. All right, let's go through here and take some notes. It's revolutionary because you can jump through all these stages. For instance, you are 10th graders. If I was in class, I would say, how many of you wish you could jump directly to college? There'd probably be hands in the air everywhere. Check your hands in the air like you just don't care. Okay, it's revolutionary. Oh, I don't know if I should tell this Tiger Woods story or not. Tiger Woods is the most famous golfer in the world. And him in one day, a long time ago, I don't even know how long ago, there was a weird story in the paper about how his wife hit him with a golf club or something like that late at night. Anyway, it turns out that he had been having apparently a bunch of affairs. And it was all over the news, a big scandal. And he's rich. I put it this way. Islesworth is the richest community in Central Florida. It's on the Windermere chain of lakes down there. And I've been on a boat on those lakes and seen both of his houses. He doesn't have one house. He has two. And we got about 5 feet from one of his docks. I may have only seen one of them. But apparently, there was going to be a divorce and she was going to get a bunch of money. And it was just all over the news. All over the news. And so he did a press conference, if you know what that is. What that is, you come out and you make a speech. And he came out and he said, I can't quote it exactly. He came out and he said, I need to look into forgiveness, or I need to do what's right. I basically said he was guilty, as I recall. And he came out and, said, I need to do what's right, and I'm going to look into my religion, which is, and, he kind of paused, and, everybody in the audience wanted him, who was religious, wanted him to name their religion. I'm going to look to my religion to help out. But I think a lot of people thought he was going to talk about Christianity because of Christianity's emphasis on forgiveness. But he goes, I'm going to look into my religion, which is Buddhism. Okay, so that's the story. So I find this very funny. Anyway, so not long after that, I hope you find this funny too. This is a true story. Not long after that, he was playing golf. Now, if you've ever seen a golf match on TV, there's, somebody's hitting the ball, and the announcers, they're all whispering. He's moving over to the ninth hole on the third green. I don't play. Rednecks don't golf. And they're all quiet and whispering. So after all this, he's been in the news. This whole story's going on. He's probably getting a divorce. His wife's getting millions of dollars. He's out playing golf. It's dead quiet. All of a sudden, a plane flies over. Dragging a banner. Here is what the banner said. How can you play golf without flying overhead? These are some pictures. Buddha, the real Buddha, apparently fasted a lot and went without food. I had a student ask me in class, I tell you what, this is one class, AP World History, where you can ask me a question I may not know the answer to. AP European, a lot less likely to happen. Economics, a whole lot less likely to happen. AP World, all the time. This was my second year teaching, and this girl raised her hand, and she goes, if Buddha fasted all the time, how come all the statues of him are fat? I had no answer. I do know that these two different statues of Buddha, no one knows what he really looked like, are from different cultural interpretations. The Buddhists have monasteries, okay? And that is a Buddhist monastery. I know a lot of you don't know what a monastery is, but that is a monastery to the left, and that is where people separate themselves, and they go out in the middle of nowhere to get away from civilization and everything. And they're usually there for hundreds of years, and many of them are beautiful, as this one is. I would love to see this place, as long as there was an elevator on the way to get there. And they have Buddhist monks, and these are Buddhist monks here on the right. And they used to put this question on the AP exam. They would say, which of the following religions does not have monasteries and monks? And you'd have to know Christianity, Catholic Christianity has monasteries and monks. So does, these are people who separate themselves. During ancient Buddhism eventually split into two branches. Now this is going to be common. When we get to Islam this week, Islam is going to split into two branches. Christianity splits between Protestantism and Catholicism. There's actually really a third branch of Christianity, but there's two major ones that we're going to talk about. And so we're about to the end of our lecture here. I have not been able to stop it and see if the microphone is working, but I hope you can hear me very well on this. I hope I have not offended anybody. And feel free to look this stuff up. And feel free, if you are Hindu or Buddhist or from this part of the world, to send me an email. I like that. If I think I told you in the previous lecture that we used to teach that Hinduism was polytheistic. And it was a student about 12 years ago who raised her hand in class. She was a Hindu, and she said that is not true. We are monotheistic. All these gods you hear about are just different manifestations of the same force. So I want to hear about all that. And let's see what else we have here in the notes. You do need to know the two branches of Buddhism. They're very different. My sister-in-law, my brother, is interesting. He is 66. His wife is, I think, 26, 25, 26. She is from, the old name was Cambodia. Today it's Kampuchea. And she is Buddhist. And one day I hope to talk to her about this. They live in Alaska, so I rarely see them. Anyway, moving on, let's see what we've got here. You can add this here. And I think we're going to stop and get to the bottom of this slide. Okay, and so this is going to end today's lecture. And I will see you soon.